So, welcome back to Copilot Fact Files. I'm Steve Harley from Beckler. I'm here with Louis.
Yeah, I'm Louis Graham, Copilot Specialist at West Coast Cloud.
So today what we thought we'd talk about, Louis, is a little bit about adoption, a little bit about getting return on investment from Copilot, because as much as everybody loves sending money to Microsoft, they want to get something in return for it, don't they?
100%. And as we finished off in the last episode, without putting that adoption in place, without putting that adoption roadmap into place, you can't get the best out of any technology, not just Copilot for Microsoft 365. Any technology that you put into place, whether it needs customer training or employee training, there needs to be that roadmap looking into the future. Now, Copilot have some release. Microsoft have released some features for us to utilize for Copilot for Microsoft 365. Obviously, we're going to be diving deeper into some of those, as well as some of the stuff that you guys at Beckler are doing for your customers as well, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, that's a good place to start is what's Microsoft's tool set available to help you measure return on investment. And I suppose it really starts with Copilot Dashboard, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, definitely. Viva is one of those things that was released and it was sort of quite hush-hush, but the Viva is now within all of the productivity applications, and it's really deemed as an employee experience solution. So Viva Suite is comprised of 8 separate modules, but the one that the Copilot dashboard is in is actually something called Viva Insights. Now, you may be used to that when you're in your emails, you got focus time, or for me, it says, oh, you've had back-to-back meetings without any time in between. It's not just giving you insights into applications, but how you're spending your time within your day. When you get a Copilot for Microsoft 365 license, the Copilot dashboard is then enabled. There are different tiers of this. So there is, once you have under 100 users and no Viva subscription licenses, and then there's additional features that come out with that once you get over 100 users, and again over 50 Viva subscription licenses.
Yeah, and that even that base level of dashboard is quite useful, isn't it? If I remember rightly, Microsoft advocate you running a survey for it for 4 or 5 key questions that they've got some benchmark stats on, but it will then also track app utilization. So who's used Copilot in the last 28 days, for example, and then what applications they've used it within, and to give you some initial stats.
Yeah, no, definitely. So not only can you see all of those things, not how many licenses you've got and how many you've got assigned, who is actually using it and where are they using it. Someone might have a Copilot license, but they're only using the Microsoft 365 chat, or they're only using it in Word. You can see all of those statistics. You can also see, as you've already mentioned, how many documents have been created, how many presentations have been created by these particular users. As you said, that is the baseline, and there are those questions that they want you to answer. You can then re-upload them into the Copilot dashboard and actually get a statistic out. If I try to get my words out, you get a stat out that says, right, you are at this percentile against other customers within Microsoft that are around your organizational size.
And it can then draw doesn't it? It draws on how many meetings you've taken notes with, for example, how many documents you've created, how many presentations, and they've got some like broad stats on the average minutes the tasks sort of take. And so they can do like a basic calculation of, average employee cost. This is what your return on investment's likely to be. So you can get some feel for is it paying for itself?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I don't know about you, but I remember when Copilot was first released, we didn't have a dashboard. No. People would start putting down in a spreadsheet, oh, I do this task, I do this task, I do this task, and then put a time against it. And then say, oh, this is how I can alleviate my time. And I saw it on LinkedIn all over, people saying, oh, this is where I've used Copilot. We don't need to do that anymore. As you already mentioned, it will see that you've had an hour's meeting, you've been able to summarize it. An average summarization of a meeting, takes 10 minutes at max, 10, 15 minutes, and a finger in the air. Creating a presentation can take, depending on how in-depth the presentation is, I've used it recently because I've been creating different presentations for different customer meetings that I'm in. Now, I had to create one from scratch because I didn't have Copilot, and then I put it against one that I did have Copilot. It did take me about 2 hours to get the content right and me to be comfortable to present it. Whereas with Copilot, as we've already said, that 2-hour period was just streamlined. I had the presentation. It was then just learning about the content that you're actually delivering.
Yeah, and it makes a big difference. So it's important to be able to measure it. And then Insights gives you another layer of statistics again, doesn't it? It allows you to do things like grouping users and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so you can see as with all Entra ID, or hopefully everyone within Entra ID has got their users out into groups, so whether it be sales, marketing, customer service, finance, you can actually see on average how much time saved has been used within those departments, how many documents have been created, how many documents have been summarized, all those different things. And it can give you actual outliers. So it will say, oh, this department isn't using it a lot in Word, but this department is. Maybe there's room for some cross-pollination, some collaboration. We already mentioned in the previous episode the ability to share the prompts themselves. That is where we need that collaboration, because there's no point one team being siloed, getting the most out of it. Someone else within the business isn't. We're all pushing towards the same end goal, which is to be more productive, be more creative, have time for the tasks that we really want to be doing, not these mundane, monotonous tasks that we all want to hand off to the AI.
No, absolutely. And I suppose really what we can kind of see from that is the ability to start to pull that reporting back, to understand what that value looks like, understanding where that utilization is, and then target your training accordingly. So a big thing that we talk about a lot in the Copilot value discovery and build the plan workshops that we do with clients is building that center of excellence, deploying Prompt Buddy, identifying who your champions are. But it's got to be an ongoing process. And I suppose being able to identify, look, this team here or this group of users here isn't utilized in this application, but we know from other areas in our business and other users that there's these prompts in their role that could help. It allows you to then target it and re-prompt in that adoption process.
Yeah, definitely. And I think when we're talking about previously, we talked about the multi-stage prompts and the multi-stage answers. There might be a task that they are doing within those applications that they can use AI for. They've not thought about it in that way. They've not thought about it. Oh, I've tried to do it once with a one-line prompt and it's not worked. Actually, take a step back, and it is about collaboration, because everyone's got different ideas in different ways. So if you can show them from a different, this particular department within legal has had to create a document, but they can't do it with one prompt. It's actually 3 prompts, but those 3 prompts would usually take them an hour and a half. We can get them 3 prompts done within 20 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever the time is, by showing them, the breakdown. And really, I think that's the best way to look at adopting Copilot. First of all, is understanding what is that business challenge? What are we trying to alleviate? What are some of the tasks that people are doing day in, day out that we can say, right, with Copilot, we can get you to put this prompt in, this will be your outcome, and it will be exactly the same, if not better sometimes, the quality of work than what you do. I think because people see AI, they see it can be used and they go, I'm going to use it all the time. And then when you get it, you're like, this is nice. I've got this nice to have. It's about understanding and then putting into place in those different tasks.
No, absolutely. It being able to ask the right questions, do the right prompt, as it were, and understanding different strategies that you can bring to prompting, be that multi-stage, be that giving roles, taking personas, setting expectations, the GCSE method that Microsoft put forward, for example. There's a number of different strategies. Making sure that people are aware of those, understand those, and have experience of seeing the different results that you get from them, that really brings that skill and embeds that skill, because ultimately using AI is a lot about being able to ask it the right questions at the right time in the right way to get the most out of it. And that habit takes time to develop, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's that statistic. The best utilizers of Copilot are actually people in a management position. Those people that have learned that skill of delegating, because that's what you're doing. I've got someone there that's an apprentice. I want to get a job out of them. And there's an example that I use within HR. I want to do a comparison between 2 separate CVs and then a job description. I could say, do me a comparison of these CVs and this job description. You could leave it as plain as that. Will the output be what I expect it to be? Will it be as detailed as I want it to be? Will it include some of the nuances that I want, whether it be a recommendation of who you actually think that I should be interviewing first, or any questions that I can ask that particular candidate? It's not going to, because I've been short, I've been sweet, I've been very direct with that prompt. The more detail we can give it, and like you said, it's about delegating work out. Now, there's a recent study where they actually said, on average, if you're not in that management position, you've not got that skill of delegating, because that's what we're talking about, being able to delegate out, which is a skill in itself. it takes about 11 weeks for you to adopt, to you understand, and then you to start utilizing it and learn that skill properly. So it's not going to be a light bulb on moment. It's not going to be a switch on. It's going to be that gradual, again, like I said, understanding what the key business challenge within that business unit is, implementing it that way, and then it will start seeping into different aspects of work. Rather than me sat here going through my emails, I can get Copilot from Microsoft 365 to summarize them for me. Or, I'm out on the train, I can't respond to this email right now, but it's really important that I need to. I can use Copilot from Microsoft 365 to generate me that first draft, augment it a little bit, amend it slightly from my side, and then send it off.
I think that's really important. The idea that getting the value doesn't happen overnight, and that it requires concerted effort to build that habit, build that knowledge, build that skill set is really important. I think as an industry, historically, we've been very guilty of producing software systems and products, putting them out there, deploying them into organizations, doing one-off training sessions and then walking away. And we all know the challenges when you just look at adopting, let's say, a new CRM system. When that changes, it's not just the session that you have where it's explained to you, but it's the using it over time that gives you that skill. Copilot's no different to that. Yeah. It's a muscle that you need to practice to be able to exercise best effect. When you've got that strength, it's a massive multiplier in your ability to get things done, the quality of the work that you produce, the efficiency that you'll be able to bring to a task really, really does expand. And there's almost a step change in what you can achieve in a day. But to get to that stage, it takes time. And I do think that there is a misunderstanding that because it is natural language, and so on the face of it, it's so easy to use, that using it is easy, if that makes any sense. Yeah, getting it to do something and prompting it to do something is one thing. Really understanding how to prompt it well, when to prompt it, when to use it, when to schedule it, those sorts of skill sets, that's where you can really generate the real return on investment. There is a limit to how quickly summarizing an email chain is going to get you a return on investment. The real power is being able to move that tool and utilize it on so much more on your day-to-day. And it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. It needs those centers of excellence. It needs those training programs. It needs that drip. And I do think when I see people deploy it in ones or twos licenses, the classic at the moment. You see, we've got a couple of licenses, and IT have played with it, and I don't think they're not utilizing it in a business environment. You need to have it on a wider, more structured basis to really evaluate that tool.
It's usually when it's those ones and twos, it's the higher ups, isn't it? It's the people that are in the management position. But what we're actually finding is, if you go in at the mid-level, if you go at the people that are actually doing the work, whether it be responding to RFPs, yes, a managing director has got a lot of work to do. There's a lot of tasks that they have to do. But by getting the buy-in from the employees themselves, where they can start seeing, I can summarize my team's message, I can see more clients, I can speak to more people. That drives not just efficiencies within the business, but inevitably it will increase the bottom line, which is what we all want. If we're in a sales position, we want more commission, we want to speak to more customers. If you can give me a tool that can help me do that, I'm going to adopt it far more better, and you can show the value of that to me to be able to do those tasks, not necessarily going towards my number, but in the future I can see it being.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose, like, having been in the boardroom, there is a limit to the number of times I'm going to summarize and create my board meetings minutes, right? So, and giving me the license costs the same as giving my my bid manager a license, for example. And if I can improve the quality of the bid that gets returned, improve the number of bids that I can return because the time taken to prepare them is much lower, then my win rate's going to come up, and that's going to improve my revenue, and that's going to then improve my profitability. So those are kind of the drivers there. So the classic, will give the shiny toy to execs and just IT, misses so much of the value of it. It really, really, really does. I mean, I think it's the sort of technology that we make a big mistake within our organizations if we restrict it in that way. It's a little bit like smartphones and tablet computers. When they first came out, you would see them be straight in at the exec level, and they wouldn't. Yet today, the productivity gains from a smartphone is across a huge swathe of the workforce. So again, it's making sure that we're not closing ourselves off too early as to who we should be assigning that to, making sure it's broad-based. And the reality of it is lots of these tasks aren't carried out day to day in the boardroom. They're carried out, knowledge work and work happens in sales teams, in marketing teams, in HR teams, in legal teams, in IT teams, in operations teams. It happens across the board. And that efficiency, that ability to do something new, to be able to interrogate data in a new way much more quickly, to be able to deliver a new service, that's where the real return on investment is going to come. I'm sure you can make it pay for itself just on summarizing emails and Teams meetings, but there's so much more there.
Yeah, that's literally just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
It's very, as you said, there's only so many emails you actually need to summarize. Only so many Teams meetings you actually need to get action items out of.
And I think that's the thing, is that they're making that information more accessible, and then being able to do it wider. That's where the real power becomes.
And I think we've mentioned it a couple of times. Collaboration is key. You can't obviously give it to 1-2 people. If you are going to give it to 1-2 people, obviously not the management. Obviously, we do say don't do that. But even once you've got it deployed, you mentioned it earlier, that Copilot Champions program, or the Copilot adoption program within the business, that cohort of people, whether you do it for a team, because there's different ways of deploying, isn't there? There's doing it by a team, there's doing it by 1 in each department, 2 in each department. Yep. Because obviously, as I've already mentioned, people have different ideas, but that is vital. That is a vital area that I've seen with our own internal adoption, because as technology companies, people think that we're on exactly the same point. We're on exactly the same train, trying to get to the end goal. We're all discovering all these new efficiencies day by day.
And that's one area where we do have an advantage from Beckler, because we had the Jumpstart program, because we had the largest deployment in Europe very early on. We do have a raft of knowledge around how best to deploy it, how to get that return on investment, how you structure those programs, you train them, and so we leverage the Copilot Value Discovery program there to be able to deliver that out to our clients, to be able to work through, look, this is what it can do, inspire you and see it. These are the guardrails and the technology considerations that you need to consider. Then work with you to understand, how are you going to deploy that within your business? What does that look like? How might my marketing department use it, for example? How might my operations and my engineering teams utilize it, for example? Understand what those use cases are, quantify what we expect the return on investment is likely to be. So we've got a set of tools that we can leverage from Microsoft, the business case assessment tool. Will help us understand, look, are we likely to see a return on investment on those? And then how do we structure that training and that adoption and pilot program? What does the content look like? How do we deploy that? Who do we identify? Who goes in what cohort? We can work with you on that. We have that knowledge to be able to share with you. And some of that is stuff that is pretty consistent, in terms of how long do we deploy a license? Well, we've got to wait for the indexes to form before it's going to work effectively. So that dictates it to a level, plus that adoption and training piece. Which users and in which groups we've got that experience of where it works. And we can also talk a little bit about how it impacts across a wider sphere. Than obviously, we're in the UK here. We're talking English at the moment. If I speak to my colleagues in the Netherlands, for example, one of the pieces of feedback that I've had is that there's quite a marked difference in the return of Copilot's responses and the quality of them if they ask the question in English versus if they ask the question in Dutch.
Really?
Yeah. So what they've found is that often that they will translate their Dutch prompt into English, feed it in English, and then translate the answer back, which kind of makes sense, I suppose, when you're talking about these large language models. There is this propensity for it to be quite westernized because of the data that it's got in there, and English centric, because that's the data it's been trained on. So yes, it can understand lots of different languages, but those little tweaks and those little understandings can really help in major adoption. So that's the sort of thing that having a good partner can really help in that process. I think as well, it's the really the first time that a generative AI tool has been fit for adoption in the enterprise and the business setting. Having the right controls, having the right guardrail. Copilot is that first to market piece. And so the lessons that we're learning here will then apply to future AI tools and future software deployments. So certainly I think it's worth engaging with people and talking about that.
Yeah, definitely. I think the one sentiment that I try and get across to both partners and customers is, realistically, when you talk about AI, yes, you've got that adoption, but in preceding that, it's really a data governance project. So as you mentioned there, it's about making sure that your house is in order before you even start touching all of these different AI tools, because without that house being in order, there was a recent webinar that I watched, and a Microsoft employee said AI or a software can only be as intelligent as the data that it reasons over. Garbage in equals garbage out, essentially.
Yeah.
So that is a big part. Yes, we're talking about that return on investment in the future, but you need to make sure that you're obviously got your house in order, and that, as you mentioned there. Then.
Oh, absolutely, and getting that governance in place. That's a huge barrier within businesses at the moment. It need not be. There are tools. There's Microsoft Purview. Microsoft Purview. Terrible. I should be able to say that by now. There's tools like Microsoft Purview that are able to assist you there, understand what data you have, understand how it's shared, what the risks, help label it, help understand and control that. Getting those guardrails up is really, really important. There's a lot of businesses that have taken their on-premise file server environment, which has been organically grown over many, many years, where, if we're honest, are we as diligent as we ought to have been in making sure the permissions and the folders are reviewed regularly? There's a lot of organizations that still either got that on premise, and they're about to move it into the cloud, in which case this is your opportunity, right? That's the moment to make sure you get that right. Or they've just taken that and they've dumped it into the cloud, because that's what you do, because it's just a different platform. So that process, and up until now, it's been that task that everybody kind of knows they need to get round to, and we have got a plan. But have we?
Yeah, we'll do it in a year's time. Or a year's time. We'll do it in the future.
And often, I feel for IT teams, right? And I feel for partners out there tasked with trying to put that in. Because if you're the IT team, you might not know the content of particular files. You might not understand what's sensitive, what's not. So how do you even start? So you're reliant on lines of business. So again, I think Copilot can be a driver to improve our governance as well.
Yeah.
One, because it requires it to be able to function effectively and to function safely, and you need to have good data governance in place. But two, the fact that you've got this tool that can aid productivity, that can give line of business departments, operational departments, functional teams an advantage. They've now got a carrot beyond the stick, if that makes sense, to actually do the governance projects. So I definitely see that there's a lot of that happening now. It has fired a starting pistol on sorting my data out. Definitely that has happened. So certainly that's the big key thing. If you get those things right, you get the training right, the tools are there to measure return on investment now, to start to get an understanding of how it's impacting our business. So there's absolutely no reason, in my view, that most organizations can get a good return on investment from Copilot and generative AI tools.
No, definitely not. And as you said, it's quantifiable now. We can see the numbers. We can see how many documents a person is creating. We can see how many proposals are going by. You can actually see it in a tangible through Viva Insights again. A little bit more detail if you then go into that additional license, obviously, which comes at additional cost, but you can still see that as a plain view. We've got 50 users in our organization. We need to see a quick insight: who's using it, who's deployed it, and it goes the other way as well. Let's say you identify someone within the organization that's not using it.
Yeah.
You can do the training, or actually, we give you a 3-week period to where you need to start. We need to show an improvement of you utilizing it. If you're not, we're going to move it on.
Yeah, redeploy it.
License.
Yeah, redeploy it. Absolutely, making sure you're getting maximum value, being able to see what's happening there. It's really now. It's definitely possible to do. Well, I mean, it's been a real pleasure, Louis, spending the time with you over the last 3 episodes. Hopefully, we'll be doing some more soon.
I'm sure you will. Well, Copilot is always changing, as we saw in the roadmap. Generative AI is always changing. And I think in the first episode, we actually mentioned about obviously ChatGPT 4.0 with the ability to speak. Yeah. I have heard through the grapevine that we will be able to like loop in an AI assistant in a short while into Teams. Wow. So as the technology is ever expanding, it's getting ever better. Some of the capabilities, we're going to have to come back and do another couple.
Oh, I mean, you just look at where technology is coming down. You've got vision already, so the ability to look out of a camera and understand what it's seeing and describing that in 4.0, that's definitely going to be coming to Copilot. I'm almost certain. You then look at AI enabled voice and where that's going. It's just unreal. So it's an incredibly exciting time, and it really does feel like we're going to look back at this and go, oh, they were talking about scheduling prompts. How quaint.
Oh, look at them. Look at like the Neanderthals trying to make a fire.
Absolutely. Been a real pleasure anyway. Thank you very much, Lou.
Thank you as always, Stephen.